What's up folks, Crush SG here, back with my first impressions and early review of the new 4-star cryo unit, Diona. So 1.1 is here, money was spent, wishes were pulled, my goal was to get Ningguang to C6 and take whatever Dionas we got, and well, C3 Diona it is. Yes, I know, only one more to C4 for the aim shot bonus, but I don't know folks. It's unlikely that I'll ever have the time or resources to test a full DPS build on her, so maybe I'll leave that to the bigger content creators. I'm also 27 pulls from pity, and I don't really feel like spending too much for Zhongli, especially after this adventure, so I'm gonna hold on this banner for now to consider my options. Anyway, here she is. I took her to 70 for now, and will be waiting till I hit AR 50 to ascend her for 80 because I'm out of cryo ascension materials, and I want the AR 50 5-star drop rate from killing the ice boss. Now at the moment I have her in Zhongyun's gear for testing, which is basically 4-piece Noblesse with a crit rate headpiece and a cryo goblet. Not that I think Noblesse is the best or only way to go, but it was just convenient because both Zhongyun and Diona are cryo, so they could pretty much share gear. I have the Favonius Warbow on her too for energy battery and burst uptime. I've also tried running her with my Chi-Chi's 4-piece Maiden, and while it does increase her healing quite a fair bit, I concluded that it wasn't really necessary, for now at least. We'll see how it goes as we get more content. More importantly, we finally officially know what her kit does in English. I took a clip of her skills when I first got her, so let's take a quick look. So it seems the claw attacks on her E skill are called Icy Paws in English, and everything else pretty much looks as translated in my thoughts video. You can pause the video at any point to read each skill if you want. I don't want to drag this video on too long. We also know what her Ascension talents do now, and they're pretty good. The first talent increases movement speed by 10% and reduces stamina consumption by 10% for the character that is protected by Diona's shield. This is very helpful. And the second talent reduces the attack of enemies who enter the Ice Mist by 10% for 15 seconds. Also very useful. The third talent just gives a chance for extra food while cooking, much like Barbara's talent. And here we have a Constellations, 15 energy recovery on C1, 15% damage to her E skill and 15% shield strength on C2. The shield generation on C2 does look like a co-op thing after all. We have the usual +3 levels to her burst on C3, C4 with the 60% aim shot charge time reduction while in the Ice Mist, and of course C5 for the +3 to E skill level, and finally we have C6 for the 30% bonus to incoming healing or 200 elemental mastery while in the mist depending on your current HP. Alright, so overall the leaks were very accurate, but after playing her for a day I have made a few observations. Let's talk about them. First, we have her E skill. The duration of the shield generated actually starts at 1.8 seconds per projectile at level 1 and caps out at 2.4 seconds as you level it up. This basically gives the shield a max duration of 12 seconds when you charge her E, which is in line with most other shield generating skills. Next, the Icy Paw projectiles fired by her E skill are in fact homing. Also, the range on her E skill is very short, so you want to be pretty close to your targets when using it. Now on the upside though, charging her E doesn't take long at all. It feels like only half a second hold before she leaps back and fires the 5 claws at the target. And this was surprisingly less clunky than I thought it was gonna be, and it's very easy to use. Also, the shield generated by her E skill is shaped like a cat, which is a nice touch. It is of course a cryo-based shield, meaning it provides 250% efficiency versus cryo damage, which is very helpful on floor 12. It easily soaks more damage than the shield created by my Noelle. And lastly, despite what the description states, the paw projectiles don't actually have to hit anything to produce a shield, which allows you to precast the shield from a distance if you need to. Okay, on to her burst. It seems they nerfed or changed the HP scaling on the heal portion of her burst skill. The leak skill description, as you can see, shows about 10% HP scaling plus 1000 HP at level 1. As you can see, it's quite significantly lower now. I have it at level 9 because of C3, and it still scales lower than the leaked level 1 stats. Now this is kind of disappointing, but it still works out sufficiently well at the end of the day. Also, the radius of the mist created by her burst is smaller than I would have liked. It's about the same size as Bennett's burst, and about 3/4 the size of Zhongyun's E-skill. Her burst animation initially felt oddly slow to me, even though it actually isn't. It's about as fast as any other character's burst, with the exception of some characters like Zhongyun, where it's virtually instant. I think this simply comes down to the fact that she doesn't move very much during her burst animation, so it feels like you aren't doing anything for a full second. It kind of made me panic for a while when I first started using her, because I kept thinking I was going to get hit. But she does gain iframes just like everyone else for a split second when you cast her burst. I got used to it in about an hour. You just gotta wait a second after hitting a burst before doing anything else, or you could animation cancel by swapping characters and stuff like that. Alright, so what are my initial thoughts of her? Well, as it turns out, she seems to work as I expected as a support, and in some cases, better than I anticipated. I had some concerns as to whether she would be able to properly heal a team solo due to her heals being gated behind her burst and her burst costing 80 energy. However, with C1 and the massive energy recharge from the Favonia's Warbow, as you can see from the clips that I'll be showing throughout the video, I had absolutely no problems keeping her burst up almost every single rotation on almost every team I tried her on. Of course, the important question is whether you need C1 to achieve this, or would C0 actually be good enough? Unfortunately, my excitement got the better of me and I didn't actually test her out at C0. I just kinda unlocked all 3 constellations. But I could speculate that at C0, the Favonia's Warbow is probably going to be required for a reasonable burst uptime. That, and you probably need good energy recharge on her artifact substats, as well as energy recharge as the main stat on her timepiece. Mine is currently attack percent. Okay, next I'll briefly go over the teams that I tested her in. This time I did all my testing on floor 12 because frankly I kill stuff fast enough below floor 12 that it actually skews the burst uptime results because of the energy regen from killing multiple mobs. Floor 12 gives the most realistic rotations because the mobs die a lot slower. So in my standard Noelle team, she took the place of Zhongyun and performed excellently. Arguably better than Zhongyun did in the same role, with identical gear and identical weapons. Now, while I didn't get particularly faster clear speeds, what I did notice was a huge difference in ease of clearing due to the heals that she brings from her burst and the shields that she generates. I hardly remember Noelle's HP dropping below 80%. I was always able to recover and heal myself up whenever I needed to, never really in much danger. So yeah, she's a pretty good Zhongyun substitute for my Noelle team, which was something that I wasn't intending to use her for. Now, she also performed very well as the healer for a DPS main like Ningguang or Klee, as you can see from the footage. Keeping in mind, both my Klee and Ningguang are level 70 with level 70 weapons. Yes, technically I had Bennett in the Klee team too, so his heals did help, but I had him there more for the buffs and resonance than his actual heals. In a way, Diona's shields allow me to focus more on laying down the damage and less on hopping around dodging stuff. Her shield can actually eat a full ice prison on the second halves of floor 12 without breaking, as you'll see later on in the Razor part, and I haven't even maxed out my flower artifact on her yet, so I'm not gaining as much shield strength as I possibly can yet. And of course, with the Pyro main DPS, Diona brings melt potential to the table. Now, this doesn't really matter on floor 12 specifically because melt is kinda the default reaction by design on floor 12, but what I mean is outside of floor 12, Diona would bring the potential for melt. Alright, lastly we have my Razor team, which was the team that I wanted to pull Diona for. Now, to be perfectly honest, playing her in my Razor team took a while to get used to, because Razor is such an absolute field hogger, but as you can see from the clips, everything fell nicely into place after a while, and I pretty much got a 1-2 punch combo out of it. Drop Fischl's Oz, drop Diona's burst, pop a shield, pop Razor's burst, rinse and repeat. Now I did have some trouble fitting Klee into the rotation because Klee is kind of a field hogger herself, but I had a much easier time in later attempts when I swapped Klee for Xiangling. And yes, of course, floor 12 is still a nightmare for most teams with non-pyro carries. And Diona is certainly not going to change that, but it's more a matter of the design of floor 12 rather than the fault of any one character. Alright folks, so what's the bottom line here? Yay or nay? Well, if you need a healer that won't freeze you every time you sneeze like Barbara does, or a cryo unit that brings a more support specific kit than Kea, or one that is less restrictive than Zhongyun is on some teams, Diona is definitely worth considering in my opinion. Her heals may not be the biggest or the fastest, neither are her shields the tankiest, but when you put both of them together in practice, they make up for the overall lack in sheer strength in either department. Now I do wish her burst area was larger than it is, and that the animation was a little quicker, but it was fine once I got used to it. But of course, with the lack of a dedicated heal or targeted heal, that could leave your team in a bit of trouble if you are faced with overwhelming constant damage or highly mobile targets. But beyond that, I'd say she's more than sufficient as a solo heal support on most teams for most content, with the appropriate gear of course. And finally, Diona is currently a raid up hero on Child's Banner, so she is somewhat accessible right now, worth considering. With the right setup, she brings good value at even C0, but of course C1 does help a lot. Her C6 is definitely very nice, but as far as I can tell, it is completely unnecessary for her to serve her basic support functions. Alright folks, that's pretty much it for my first impressions and review on Diona. Needless to say, it's still early days, so maybe with more playtime my views may change, and if they do, I'll probably do an update video talking about it. As always, thumbs up if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't, share my videos with your friends if you learned something, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.